I knew you would. I would say you could borrow it, but you guess what?
Good morning. Welcome to Timbercrest Chapel. Thank you, Dwight Beery, for the piano music, some of our favorite hymns. And thanks to Stan Beery on tech. This morning, our speaker is Seth Hendricks. Many of you know him. He's at the Manchester Church of the Brethren. And I think he's going to include some music in his devotions. We welcome Seth.
Good morning. In our congregation, we have been talking through the month of August a bit around love. In fact, we've entitled it Love, 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 and talking about how love is guiding us in different ways. And I thought that I would offer some reflections along that light based around this passage from Exodus that I'm sure is familiar to you, Exodus 2, 1 through 10. Now a man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and plastered it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds on the banks of the river. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and while her attendants walked beside the river, she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child. He was crying, and she took pity on him. "This must have been one of the Hebrew children," she said. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it, and when the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, because she said, "I drew him out of the water." I want to invite us just into song and into prayer, into this space. If you want to sing along, feel free to. The words are on number 353, although I think you might catch on without them. Lord, listen to your children pray. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children pray. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. Something's gonna happen like the world has never known. When the people of the Lord get down to pray, a door's gonna swing wide open and the walls come a-tumbling down. When the people of the Lord get down to pray, all the children sing, Lord, listen to your children pray. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children pray. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. God's gonna take over. Yes, God is gonna take control when the people of the Lord get down to pray. Gonna move the mountain, gonna make the waters roll when the people of the Lord get down to pray. Singing, Lord, listen to your children pray. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children pray. Send us love, send us power, send us grace, send us love. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. I want to talk about love this morning, and I offer these words from a movie that was released in 2003 entitled Love Actually. Whenever I get gloomy with the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport. General opinions starting to make out that we live in a world of hatred and greed, but I don't see that. It seems to me that love is everywhere. Often it's not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there. Fathers and sons, mothers, daughters, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, old friends. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were messages of love. If you look for it, I've got a sneaking feeling you'll find that love actually is all around. Now, in contrast to this notion from that movie quote, if you look at the context around this story from Exodus, it would be easy for any one of us to get consumed with all of the hate and greed that flows in and around this story. For instance, if we know our Exodus story, in chapter 1, we are introduced to a new king in Egypt, a Pharaoh so full of hate that he resorts to infanticidal measures to achieve his means. And after previous failed attempts to suppress the Israelites' power, the Pharaoh commands, "Every boy that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every girl live." Now, as is the case with many antagonists, their plan often backfires in some way, and Pharaoh's is certainly no exception. As Pharaoh lays focus On the male gender, it is the women of this story that take front and center and ultimately counteract Pharaoh's plan in many ways. And so it is with this ironic twist of the story and the actions of 5 women that I invite us to sharpen our focus this morning. First, we are introduced to the Hebrew midwives in chapter 1 who faithfully defy Pharaoh's orders. Reading from Exodus 1:15, the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you help the Hebrew women in childbirth and observe them on the delivery stool, if it is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do, and they let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?" And the midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." And so God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. It is then after the faithfulness of the midwives that we encounter Moses' mother, who hides her baby for 3 months, then places Moses in a basket, floats him down to the river in hopes that he will survive. And then following Moses' mother, we meet the daughter of Pharaoh, who is perhaps the most unlikely and shocking of characters in the story. Not only does she show compassion to this child in the water, but she defies her own father's instructions in the process. Reading from Exodus 2, verses 5, then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. Finally, then, we have Moses' sister, who follows Moses along the river, making sure he is safe, and then she reappears when Pharaoh's daughter has removed Moses from the water. Reading from Exodus 2:7. Then his sister asks Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go out and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. And the girl went and got the baby's mother, and Pharaoh's daughter said, "Take this baby, nurse him for me, and I will pay you." And so the woman took the baby, nursed him, and when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter. He became her son, and she named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." So here we have the 2 midwives, the mother of Moses, Pharaoh's daughter, and Moses' sister, 5 ordinary women. In fact, so ordinary that outside of the 2 midwives, their names are not even mentioned to us at this point in the story. And as a result, what appears to be important are their actions, actions that change the lives of others, in this case, the life of Moses. No doubt they could have easily turned away. They could have succumbed to the forces surrounding them. And who would have blamed them, perhaps? Pharaoh's own daughter. But what amazes me surrounding this story is the manner in which they respond in the faces of hate, in the faces of greed and fear, in the face of Pharaoh's corrupt plans. They each choose to respond with love, with faith, with compassion. What is apparent to me in this story that despite the greed, the fear, the revenge, the hate, love actually is all around. Love is all around Moses through the lives of this community of women that came to his aid. So given the actions of these women in this story for us, how do we continue to respond to stories like this? How do we become unlikely communities of faith, love, and compassion like those that aided Moses? When we find ourselves down by the river's edge, how do we respond? Will we draw people out of the water? How are we challenged by the actions of the women in this story? How do we respond? I think of someone like Cliff Kindy, a member of our North Manchester community, of the Church of the Brethren, of Community Peacemaker Teams, or CPT, who shares an experience of responding at the river's edge and in the face of one's enemy. Here are his words while in CPT in Iraq. Passing by the village of Rutba on a bombed bridge, we apparently picked up some shrapnel in the rear tire of our taxi. 4 kilometers further, that tire blew and we were in a ditch. All 5 injured. The first 2 cars in our caravan didn't look back for another 45 minutes. An eastbound Iraqi driver stopped, hollered across the median of the 6-lane highway and said, "Can I help?" He loaded us into his car, took us back to a first aid room in Rutba. There they assured us that it did not matter if we were Christian instead of Muslim, Bosnian instead of Iraqi. They started to bandage our wounds. I was last. I think they were doing triage and thought that I wouldn't live with my body drenched in blood. As the doctor sewed up my head wound, he said, 3 days ago, a US pilot bombed and destroyed the children's hospital here in Rutba. Then it hit me. For this physician, I represented the enemy. I am alive today because he saved the life of his enemy. What does it mean for us to extend this kind of love? To love even our enemies? Or what if the enemy in that moment is one of our parents? Imagine the strength and courage, perhaps, of Pharaoh's daughter, who shows compassion, saves the life of one of her father's enemies. How would we respond in similar situations? Is it with love and compassion? Can we set aside our own differences, our own personal agendas, theologies, fears, and instead grow together as spiritual communities nurtured in God's love? A community of love, much like the women in this story. As we consider how this story from Exodus calls us to respond, I want to share one last story that takes place during another genocidal period in our history. These words come from an anonymous diary reflection in the fall of 1943. After being captured by the Nazis in the Ukraine, my grandfather was sent to Auschwitz. At first, he was just one of many Soviet POWs held at the camp, but it was later discovered that he was Jewish, so he was removed from the Soviet soldiers and placed with the other European Jews. My grandfather never knew why he survived, why others perished, but there was never a day that passed after liberation in 1945 that he didn't thank God for that gift of life. My grandfather was able to get to England, then on to America to restart his life. He raised 5 children, later cherished 22 grandchildren. He loved to work in his garden, even on the hottest days. As a child, I always wondered why he wore long shirts, even on those August days when it would easily be 100 degrees, even in the shade. When I was 9, I caught my grandfather shaving in the bathroom, and that's when I saw it, his number, 588-77-241. Not knowing any better, I asked him why he got such a stupid tattoo. He told me that he didn't really want to get it, quickly tried to cover it with a towel. I followed him asking, "Why don't you get it removed then?" And he stopped dead in the hallway and without turning around said, "So I do not forget." And we never discussed it again. When he died last summer, I told myself that he was finally at peace. And as I stood over him with my family, I reached down, took his arm in mine. I unbuttoned his sleeve. I rolled it up. I looked at the number again, 588-77-241. My wife looked at me and asked, "Why are you doing that?" And all I could say was, "So I do not forget." And now when I see hate and bigotry that comes out of those who call themselves Christians, I know that this is how it began decades ago in Europe. It was too late, when people finally woke up and millions carted away in cattle cars to their deaths. And so I didn't want to forget to see that here or anywhere else, that I don't want to see anyone be tattooed with a number, no more 588-77241. It's stories like these, stories like Cliff's, stories from a time, no doubt, where we find ourselves this day in a political season. Stories like these 5 women from Exodus. Each one calls us not to forget. Each one calls us to respond at the river's edge, to embody the truth that God's love is revolutionary, that God's love knows no boundaries. From Moses' sister keeping watch along the river to Pharaoh's own daughter's defiance, we are witness to God's presence and love. As we gather here together, may we be reminded yet again of the love that guides us on our way. That love is actually all around us. Indeed, God's love is all around. I want to close us with these words I wrote a number of years ago. I was in Bremen, Indiana, with some youth pondering what it means to put love in action. And these kind of words came out. Let your love shine down. Let your love shine down. Let your love shine down on me, on me. Let your truth be shown. Let your truth be shown. Let your truth be shown to me, to me. And let us love. Let there be truth, not in word or speech, but let our actions lead the way. Let us love, and let there be truth, not in word or speech, but let our actions lead the way. But let our actions lead the way. Go in love.